All right, welcome back to the Jiu-Jitsu Mindset. It's me, Pete Dealey, going solo without my co-pilot, Professor Lucas. He's out there teaching and improving the world. Although both of us started our day with submission coffee, so those of you who've been asking about it, you can get it at thejujitsumindset.com, and you can also sign up for our mailing list. You can learn about our online class if you are so interested. The divine has smiled once again on us. We have amazing people coming and speaking to us, and this week is no exception. So, Professor Jeff Shaw, I'm so grateful for you coming and spending some of your time with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Pete. I'm excited to talk to you today.
We have, it seems, many things in common, and not the least of which you just told me you have some of your own coffee up there in the Northwest. So I know I'm among the caffeinated. And tell us real quick, what do you guys have up there? Because it sounded like you had some fun stuff.
Yeah, so we have three different coffee brands. We have the Berimbolo blend. My homie Josh Murdoch on the cover there. Shout out to Josh Murdoch.
Very
We're putting in a
cool.
blend called Creonche coffee, and every Christmas we put out coffee called Elf Defense that has an elf rear naked choking another elf on the label. It's goofy, but we love it. We love our coffee in the Northwest, and we're a little silly.
Yes, I love it too. It's my first choice for submission coffee, the naming was to name it Rear Naked Choke. But my wife and the professor's wife nixed that name. It's a little bit of decorum. They felt like we lacked. And so it ended up, I love the name Submission Coffee, but those are cool. Elf Defenses. That's awesome.
I love the name submission coffee too. And while it's really important to listen to your wife, the wives are usually I put on an omoplata instructional.
Oh,
and I
nice.
have a move where I finished from the omoplata crucifix, and I called it the Blood Eagle, so people know what.
Yeah.
Or exactly, because it feels like just explode. My wife is, you can't call it that. You can't call it that on a DVD. And I was like, but it's just she talked to me into changing it to Space Mountain, which is a Ric Flair reference. So
Oh, okay. All right.
not quite as brutal, but cool nonetheless.
She thought you might offend the Viking constituency.
Nobody wants to offend the Viking, man.
You don't want to find a bunch of shield maidens at the door coming for you. So she's probably right. And I think that you're right. Always happy wife, happy life, I think is the expression, right? Professor Jeff, we like to generally start with what might have been the roads traveled if you hadn't dedicated yourself to jiu-jitsu, and maybe you would have been a coffee mogul at this point in time. Who knows? But when it comes to, you look back, reflect about the different directions you took, what may you have been doing right now if you weren't doing this?
So, let me answer that question in two ways. The first of all, all my values would be the same, whatever I was doing, but I wouldn't be as resilient a person if I hadn't done jujitsu. And
Interesting.
when I say resilient too, people think of physical resilience, like with comfortable being uncomfortable. You're sure, right?
Right.
Jiu-jitsu teaches us that too. It's very important. But I also wouldn't be as resilient mentally, in the sense that jiu-jitsu academies, if they're healthy, are extremely diverse places. You have folks from all walks of life. You have hobbyists, competitors, fighters, old folks, young folks of all genders, right? If it's a healthy environment,
Yeah.
not environment for healthy, but in that kind of diversity leads to diversity in viewpoint, background, those types of conversations. And that, I think, led me to be a stronger person, both mentally and physically, than I would have been otherwise. I think that's a really important benefit of jiu-jitsu. As far as where I'd be just in my life, I was working at nonprofits when I got into jiu-jitsu.
Interesting.
And even after you mentioned a submission coffee is a passion project for y'all. That's what Bellingham BJJ was for me. My wife is from North Carolina originally, which is where I got to start training. Still deeply connected to that place. Love that place. I'm going to be going back in February. But when I got started training there and I moved back here, there wasn't an academy in the town that we moved to that I really felt comfortable training at. And so I was like, can we create a space? My wife didn't want us to open an academy because it takes a lot of roll yourself into it. It's risk. I had a full-time day job, and so it was going to be a passion project where she was like, if you were training somewhere else, you'd be paying some dues to an academy. If we lose money on it, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
And so 200 students later, we were like, maybe we should quit the day job because this is still a passion project. And I'm still super passionate about jiu-jitsu, but I would have probably continued working in nonprofits and just trying to make the world a better place if I hadn't. I still try and do that in the ways that I can.
Yeah.
But I still continue to exercise that part of my life connected to jiu-jitsu, where we have a local university here, and I'm teaching the occasional classes up there, and I may be teaching a history of jiu-jitsu class there next year.
Oh, how terrific is that?
I'm trying to fuse those parts of my life.
So that's not many people get to tell the story you just told, where what is passionate to them on a personal level. And then the bulk of our time as modern human beings is spent making sure our economic responsibilities are met. Our professional lives generally take up the bulk of our time. And not everybody's professional life is entirely aligned with their personal passions as well. It sounds like that happened gradually too, that you clearly, as working in the nonprofit world, your intent was to spend your time improving the world, not just with the intent of making as much money as possible. But still, that's an organization that you'd had to navigate. And in this environment, you're the one setting the context, you're the one setting the culture. Obviously, the 200 people that are a part of it all are contributing. But I find that the leader of the place points it in the direction, and people either get in line with that or not. Has that changed your relationship to jiu-jitsu, that now your economic life is tied to your passion and not every day is the same? So presumably you're like the rest of us, that you do have the occasional day where you're like, what am I doing? So I'm just curious, like what's different now than maybe when it was just about you when you did your time in jiu-jitsu?
That's a really intelligent question. And I got to tell you, I was concerned about it because
Yeah.
when you have a passion, whether that's like an art or a craft, working, dance, whatever, when you make it a professional life and suddenly your family's livelihood is relying on it, there's the risk of it becoming a job. And I'm happy to report that jiu-jitsu has never become a job for me. It's still a passion project, which is great. The things that I think have prevented the joy from coming out of it, other than just, we have a bunch of amazing people at my space and I'm grateful to those folks every day. But like a couple things happened. So for one, I started to diversify our instructor pool. Like at first it was just me teaching all the classes. I thought it'd be that way forever. My goal was to get to 20 training partners and just have us have a great time. And then we got to 40, and my buddy David Porter, one of the greatest jiu-jitsu technicians alive, down here for a year, helped us start really what Bellingham BJJ is in earnest. And so it was me and Dave teaching all the classes.
Mm-hmm.
And then now we have 40 classes a week, and
Wow.
2 people cannot teach all the classes. So now we have 14 or 15 instructors. And what's cool about that, I agree with your interpretation that although the job of the leader is to set the tone, but I think it's really important that a leader not be top down and draconian and tell people what to do, because we all learn in different ways, all bring different cool stuff to the table with our life experiences, our body types, our technical preferences. The one of us is really big into the crucifix. I don't really do the crucifix. And so I got to go for that.
Right. Yeah.
And so being able to have a lab, like I think of us as like an anarcho-capitalist commune or a pirate ship, where I make the decisions, which is related to the other part of your question. But I think it's really important to have space for people to grow as people, as instructors, as leaders in their own right, so that like Jesse Johns, who has dove deep into the Kimura trap game, have this as he's really good generally, but have this specialty that he can then pass on to other folks, or just have everybody, when we all get better, we all get better.
Hey, I love it. Yeah.
That's the goal. I will confess, like the stuff that I don't enjoy the business aspect of it. That's the thing. We pay bills. I'm grateful. I love paying bills because I wasn't always the paying bills.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the business stuff of it is not the stuff that gets me fired up in the morning, that gets me the joy to get out of bed at 5 a.m. to teach the 6 a.m. class. I'm not thinking about paying taxes. I'm not thinking sure the insurance is up to date. So it's still, but the community is what fires me up. And so that I think prevented what I feared would happen, and this just becoming another job, from happening. So it's still a place that gives me a lot of joy. And as long as, and I think that will always continue.
Yeah. I think if you were the person that really loved making sure that the insurance was up to date and your taxes were paid, my guess is that community would not look the way it looks. So let's thank God you're pointed in that direction. And I think as businesses mature and there's a diversification of roles and responsibilities, the outsourcing of the bill paying to the bill payers, and that you have enough resources to take those things off your plate, that you can stay focused, I think if businesses can survive to that point, then your passion becomes where the energy is spent, rather than having to divide that against, am I going to be able to keep this place open and keep ahead of, with all the differentiation in terms of your students and then the perhaps specialties of your professors, because you have people who are interested in going deep into certain things. I'm curious, when you observe your students' skill acquisition, is there some universality to their learning? Is there something where you're like, you know what, this is pretty common to how people pick this up? Or is every can of worms its own can of worms? Like you just got 200 people and 200 ways to learn?
I'm a big believer in walking the middle path. And so I think a little from column A, a little from column B. I always tell people, like jujitsu itself, skill acquisition has fundamentals. From there, you can experiment and build the pyramid in different ways. And so we're lucky to have two full-time instructors who are also teachers who went to school to learn the universal design for learning and things like that. So we've been
Wow.
educated in that way. And of course, we've seen a lot of different ways, a lot of different schools, a lot of great schools do it in different ways. But I would say for me, learning jujitsu occurs in 3 stages: mastery of self, mastery with a partner, and mastery with resistance. And so I'm a big
Nice.
believer in instruction, drilling, which is what is sometimes called derisively static drilling. Really believe in that, particularly for new people. And then introducing resistance, and resistance is a critically important stage, right? It's how your jujitsu works, where
Right. Yeah.
you tried that mount escape against a guy that's bigger, stronger, and better than you, and you got out. Now it works, and it's
Yeah, exactly.
and
Yeah.
critically important. And so I would say, so that's how we have a program we call Intro to BJJ. Every new student goes through that to onboard them not only to fundamental jiu-jitsu skills, but also to the culture of, hey, here's
Yeah.
how we spar hard, but we spar productively, we spar safely. So that's an 8-class series where at first it's just we're learning the move, practice the move. And then we introduce them to positional sparring because we find it eliminates the over enthusiastic white belt problem where you're
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
in a position, I don't know what to do here. So whatever I do, it's going to be fast, hard, explosive, and crazy. And so instead we start them off with positional sparring where it's like, all right, you're trying to get out. I got your back. I'm trying to you're trying to escape. You escape. We start again. This kind of situational training is in academies all over the world. And only then do we ladder them up into the free sparring that's really common, which I still think is like the core, what most people love, how most people acquire skills. But we do experiment. Like I'm a big believer in, you mentioned how, you know, it's not 200 people learning 200 different ways, but it's important to understand that people do acquire knowledge
Yeah.
differently. Some folks can see videos and learn from that. I
Yeah.
wish I was like that.
Yeah. Me too.
My mentor, Jake Whitfield, can read a book and learn a ton from the books. I can do that with history. I can't really do that with jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
But so what we also do is we provide a bunch of external resources so that we do have written material, we have video material, we have audio content. So like whatever your mode, whatever your learning style is, you can adapt to those resources. And some folks will never watch the videos, and some folks just want to roll, and some folks,
Yeah.
but like, I feel like if you aim at the fundamental universal design for learning, and then you provide the resources for people to take direction and take ownership of their own learning, in my experience, they will use those resources and they will gravitate to what's best for them.
Yeah. And for me, in those different levels, I think it's so good to have a framework in which somebody could know, well, this is what I'm doing now. And I have an aspiration to move to another level. And think mastery of self probably underpins like the whole bit, right? Because there's never a point in time when you're not struggling with your own propensity towards something that's counterproductive. And that time domain, I think, is critical in my mind in that I think it's very hard to rush jujitsu skill acquisition. You could go and you can't force feed yourself. For me, that ability to patiently fail at something sufficiently to give yourself a chance to taste some success. But I'm a beginner, maybe 4.5 years into my things, and I'm still waiting for my brain and body to connect. And if video was a way for me to learn, I would somebody be offering me a gi contract right now, because that'd be amazing if I just was acquiring skills that way. There's development. One of the ways in which you can choose to have a test against what you've learned and not learned is competition. And so I'm curious of your perspective on two things. One, the role of competition in a person's development. Is it for everybody or just for the few that really enjoy it? And then two, it's impossible for me not to ask, given your vast sort of competitive life, if I ask you the question, what's your most memorable fight? Like what comes to mind? So those are two questions along the lines of competition.
Totally. Thank you. I love this question because I'm a huge believer in competition. I love it. I don't think it's for everybody, but I also don't think it's for the few.
Right.
Believe what Hoyler Gracie said, which is everybody should try it once. And I'm a believer that jiu-jitsu is a consent-based activity, which means I'm never going to force anybody to do it.
Yeah.
We have, of our 200, we probably have about 60 people who have competed, maybe 80, and about 20 to 30 regular, like out there competitors. And what I tell folks is if you never try Spider Guard, you'll never know if you're going to be great at Spider Guard. If you never try competing, you'll never know what it can do for you. And so on the spectrum, some folks are super fired up to try it. Some folks are super terrified of it. In order to encourage some folks, to do it, what we do is we hold quarterly in-house tournaments every season.
Yeah, nice.
So it's that middle path, because the barrier to entry for competition for some folks is just intimidation. Like, I don't want to be in a gym with hundreds of people I don't know. They're all watching me, and our competition matches are hard. Our blue belts are tough,
Mhm.
but a different environment where it's like, oh, it's 50 people watching. I know them all. They all have my best interests at heart. And
Right.
although any type of expressly competitive environment is going to be more stressful than just you and me having a casual fun role, it ladders up to that competition stress, so that some people, like, we've had people do that, and it's like an incubator for them to go and compete externally.
Yeah.
And some folks find out, like, man, I'm really glad I did this. I don't need to do this. Right. Which I think is okay too.
I do. I agree.
Yeah, like I have, I think, 278 competition matches, and
Gotcha.
at least one more. I turned 50 in October, and I definitely want to compete this coming year at 50, or that'll be. And I have fun doing it. It's stressful, it's fun, it's challenging. You have to put the role of it in growing your jujitsu. I really think it's awesome to. I think jujitsu is about challenging yourself,
Mhm.
and you can definitely challenge yourself in your academy, because you probably have tough rules where you are. We have tough rules where we
Sure.
are.
Yeah.
But it's human nature that, like, we're not trying to murder each other. You're my friend, and we're going hard. But my game, I know your game. We've trained together for 4.5 years. You know what I'm going to try to do. Probably, I know what you're going to try to. One of the cool things about competition, and what also makes it stressful, is the unknown. Where you walk
Yes.
across the room and you're like, that dude might be a judo black belt. He might be a guard puller. Might have wrestled at a D2 school.
Yes.
And he
Yeah.
maybe that Kimura that I see coming is not a Kimura, where he wants this response, where he's going to north south choke me. And because you don't get to see those folks daily, and that, I think, is really helpful to grow jujitsu. That means that, like, everybody does jujitsu for different reasons. So what I would say is, you have been school. Everybody has to learn the fundamentals, right? Good, solid, fundamental, like, to blue belt jujitsu is good for self-defense. It's good for sport. It's good for mental well-being. It's good for building a tougher, more resilient person. And then from there, once you have that base, then you can specialize. And so maybe you're that dude that's, I really love no-gi competition. Awesome, man. Learn all the fancy leg locks, have fun, build toward that top of the pyramid that way. Some people are like, I love the gi. Some people are just like, you know what? I just want to learn to defend myself, teach other people to defend themselves. All of these are amazing, awesome, and worthy goals. You got to have the basics for any of them. And it was interesting. I started training at a HSBC network school, and which was very good, solid, fundamental, old school jujitsu that wasn't fancy, was designed for fighting, for self-defense, for any situation, rules, no rules, strikes, no strikes, gi, no gi. And I'm a huge believer still that stuff wins competition matches, right?
Oh, yeah.
And if you look at Little Lovato, right? Lovato is more than 40. She's got second at ADCC in the toughest ADCC field ever, because the man has perfect basics. And of course, he knows everything else too. Lovato is incredible, one of the best ever. But that's proof that's the kind of game that ages with you, and it's sustainable. And all the cool stuff is really cool. My game, from once I sort of branched out, and I've been very lucky to train at a diverse array of gyms all over the world. I've trained at self-defense gyms, at sport gyms, and 10th Planet gyms, and old school fight gyms, and really tough rooms, and rooms that are focused on intellectual self-defense. And I have learned from all of those things. And I'm a big believer you should train with everyone. You should compete with everyone. Everyone in the room has something to teach you. And we're going to my own competition matches, which I will answer that part of the question.
Yeah, no, this is great.
But yeah, like, people think that, I think it's a mistake for people that are jiu-jitsu practitioners generally, but also competitors, to think there's like a magic technique that if you learn it,
Yeah.
you're just going to tap everybody, right? And I think people love to look for quick fixes. And this is why when blue belts love heel hooks, this a few weeks ago, doesn't leg lock. It's like you have a cheat code. And then but I always tell people, learn things like the straight ankle lock first, because when you get to black belt, if you're not able to threaten people with other fundamental ways, and of course I'm just using this
Yeah.
tricky heel hook game that is very beautiful, with beautiful setups, entries, and finishes. But learning the basics makes all the fancy stuff easier and better. And so, in terms of my own competition history, I have two answers. And what's funny is, a lot of my favorite matches ever are matches I lost.
Right.
And
Right.
because what fires me up about competition is, and I'm always trying to win under every rule set. If you beat me, you got the best me on that day, the best possible me on the day. Believe me, I was trying my best to beat you.
Yeah.
And of course, a loss stings in the moment. But as I look back on it, it's the people that brought the best me out of myself.
Yeah.
Are the people that beat me. And so, like, I had two matches against guys in North Carolina, Chris Luter and John Shell. John and I traded matches back and forth a while. Both these guys are black belts now. Both of them are still really tough competitors. And I'm not going to go into the chapter and verses of the match, but these were back and forth.
Yeah.
Neither of these dudes has a pause button.
Okay.
And at the end of a match like that, win or lose, you know that you have it. If you can look at yourself a week later and be like, that pulled the best me out of myself.
Yes. Yes.
I had adversity and I didn't quit and I gave myself a chance to win. And another great example is this. I had a match at Toro Cup, which we're going to compete again in February. I'd love to talk about Toro Cup later if you want.
Sure. Yeah.
It's, against this guy, Daniel Frank. And Daniel's an incredible black belt. He's been a black belt, I think, gosh, at least 10 years. And smaller guy like me, and forever really respect his technique. I've had him out as for my gym to teach a seminar, and I competed against him. And Daniel won on points, which I was definitely an underdog going into that match. It was a 10-minute amazing back and forth match, and where he won, and he deserved to win. He sometimes you do your best and somebody else is better. But the fact that I went up against a black belt of that caliber and I gave myself a chance to win until the very last minute made me really proud.
Oh, yeah. Rarely do you go back and reflect a lot on the victory, right? Because the victory is like just a confirmation of what you think was going to work anyway. Because I went in knowing what I know and it worked. So it's only in the places in which somebody is basically telling you it doesn't always work the way you think it's going to work that exhaustion in those matches. When I say my competitions, these are local friendly things that I've been involved in. And I'm 54, so it's hard to find people my age to fight against, and I'm often paired against younger guys. I had a nice moment of victory once with this gentleman, and as we finished it, I don't really care about the outcome. I just need a cheeseburger. And it was a terrific moment. We had a tough match, went the way that it went. And at the end, like his kids came up and said hello, and it was a nice moment. I also feel like it's one thing to be overpowered, and then it's another thing for somebody to elegantly present to you an idea that this technique is something that is powerful because it wasn't forced on you through strength. So when I listened to you talk, it sounds like these were extraordinarily talented people who also happen to be powerful athletes, and you were right there in the thick of the fight. And then at the end, these moments for me often reveal something about ourselves. I'm curious if you think I learned this about who I am, and then also change you like, hey, this is stress inoculation for the more serious parts of life. Yes, the competition matters, but there's a million other things that we could probably talk about that we would say, is it more important than this conflict if my kid's not doing well or my family's got it? Those are the moments where you really need that resilience the most is off the mats. And so I value a lot like what you're saying there as well. Did anything come to mind that like you got revealed to you in those tough contests?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let me just say, I agree with both halves of what you're putting forward here. Like competition is extremely valuable. It teaches you a lot. And yes, the dudes that I was going up against were athletic. These are not goons. These are jiu-jitsu athletes that are doing crisp, powerful technique, right? The correct way. And I think the thing that where I've noticed my own personal growth in jiu-jitsu, it's just, I've always been, I think, I've always been a fairly resilient person in certain ways, but jiu-jitsu has really just dialed up my no quit meter. Because, and both these dudes, John and Chris, are both bigger than me. I also had, like, my favorite match I've ever won was, was one of my goals to win an IBJJF absolute division open weight class. I competed at light feather, so I was 135.
Wow.
And ended up beating a dude more than twice my size, which was, wow, awesome. Yeah. And they're probably my favorite victory ever. But the thing that all those have in common, win or lose, is that people say stress doesn't always build character, but stress almost always reveals character.
Yes.
And so just being able to look yourself in the eye and be like, that got really tough and I didn't quit. There was an easy way out and I did not take it. Jiu-jitsu is like life. It's a struggle between what's right and what's easy.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, you've probably seen numerous competitions where you can't really tell if a choke is on or not. And taps or I'm not trying to pass judgment on anybody, but like and because a lot of times things are happening that you can't feel if you're not out there on ready for one. But you know if you quit or not.
Yeah.
And to be able to look yourself in the eye and look, we've all had situations where we were exhausted and we gave up and we fail better next time, guys. Fail better next time. Right? Look, that is what the common thread I see through all of those matches is just being able to know, like, it got hard and I didn't give up. And You mentioned like jujitsu being a proxy for life. My favorite word in English, which is a word we stole from Greek, the word synecdoche.
Okay.
Synecdoche said it that way for many years because of
Yeah.
Greek. And it means the thing itself and the thing it represents. So you say, hey, I need a hand. Yeah, you might literally need somebody's hand to help you lift it, a refrigerator or something, but it's a metaphor. It's the thing, but it's also what it represents.
Yeah.
Competition jujitsu, it's for me, right? Like the gold medal, does it matter? Yes, but what matters more is that continual progress toward the
Yes.
goal, right? And the resilience that you build matters a lot more if you've got a sick kid in an ER, or if you have to,
Yeah.
if you get a call from a friend whose boyfriend is not behaving right, and then all the ability. I think I forget who said that life is about working to become worthy of your sufferings,
Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah.
but I've always loved. You have these moments in our life. Like I'm really proud of my jiu-jitsu competition record. Win, lose, whatever. Really proud of of that. But that doesn't matter to me nearly as much as I know that prepared me for if there's a real crisis in my life. I'm going to be more resolute, and I'm going to be more able to solve that crisis, that meaningful crisis, whether that's a self-defense situation or whether that's a situation with a health crisis to my family. And that's where the real value for me comes in.
Yeah. We had a fascinating conversation with Hobson Mora, and there's a moment in his life where it's at the moment where his twins are being born, and it's not clear how it's going to go. And in the story, that was just so like compelling to listen to him talk about that moment where the doctor comes and gives him news. The news it isn't great news. The story ends wonderfully well, but he's going in to talk to his wife, and I felt like I was just grabbing my gi and okay, another round. And in those moments, and all of us have had those moments where you were forced past your capacity to handle things in a moment, right? You really find out where you're capable of going in your life. Tragedy comes to all of us, sadly, and it has to. So for him to have such a touch point this is excruciating, but I have been in excruciating moments before, and I'm just going to go in there and I'm going to fight this out. Was one of the stories that I've heard on this podcast that was exactly what we're talking about, right? Like, what do we prepare for? We prepare for those moments where we have to show up the strongest in the most serious of circumstances. When you have such a thoughtful disposition about what you're doing, that you probably have a very high level of sensitivity to how this instruction and what's going on between your instructors and this community that you've built, that I know you have a lot of stories of the impact of jiu-jitsu on other people's lives. And so I'd just like to ask, maybe what's a favorite that comes to mind as how jiu-jitsu changed somebody?
I have two answers. I had one, and then I got another one last night on the X. And one is like jujitsu skills, and the other is jujitsu mindset. Where I had a student who worked. He was a homeless advocate, and so we have a large unhoused population here, and unfortunately, there's not enough beds. There's not enough mental health treatment.
Yeah.
And so this dude worked at the local shelter. And a lot of times you have dudes, you don't see, like law enforcement or first responders, you don't always see people at their best. Right?
Sure.
And I teach the old Gracie Jiu-Jitsu self-defense, updated with some stuff that's specifically applicable to our community. And this kid's a white belt, and he was a really good kid, but young guy, like in his early 20s. And you could tell that he was not skeptical necessarily, but would this really?
Yeah.
And a dude put him in a bear hug. And my
Wow.
man, the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu bear hug defense was able to, and it was caught on video. He sent me the video. Like he doesn't train, he moved out of town, so he doesn't train here anymore. But he's like, hey, and sent me this clip that I still have where he's, look at this. What does this look like to you? And I was like, looks like class number 10 that we did that hot. Yeah. And stuff like that. I have a lot of stories like that. Thankfully, blessedly few, because you never want, like I would say, right. One of our self-defense principles is don't get in fights. 10,000 things can happen in a fight, and 9,999 of them are bad.
Yeah.
Sometimes the fight finds you, and you have to be prepared. That's right. Like, there are stories like that of people that use their jiu-jitsu skills to keep themselves safe, to not hurt other people either, if they don't have to.
Let me just tell a quick story, just because it's along this line, and it makes me laugh, and then I want to hear the second story. But I have a friend, and he and I were teenage friends together. We're effectively the same age, and he collected black belts over his life. Like he had, I don't know how many he's up to. But one of my favorite moments is we're at like a family party, and all the young kids come up to him, and his name's Dan. He's Uncle Dan. We want to know like the most potent, these are all like 7 to 14. What's the most powerful martial art move you can show us? And he gets a really serious face on. He's all, you guys stand in front of me. He says, I'm going to show you this move right here. And he gets in front of him and he makes his mean face and he sets up to fight. And then he turns around and runs. And he's like, you know what? Get out of the way, don't go looking for fights. But it carried so much meaning for them because here is this guy who's got 4 different black belts, is an awfully tough guy. And his message to the kids was, we don't do this to go looking for fights. Like we just, as you said, sometime the fight comes to us. We want to avoid that as much as possible. Anyway, it just seems in the line of what you just said. And
nothing else. Nothing else is for a good tropical man. That was he on the boats? Well, so the other story is related to the community aspect of jiu-jitsu, which I think is really underrated. And I think jiu-jitsu is like a third place where people that otherwise be friends are passionate friends, where folks that don't have a lot in common get together and engage in play, essentially.
Yeah.
And we're able to have these stressful physical experiences, but also talk to each other. And so I was cleaning the mats last night and we did our Halloween costume jiu-jitsu, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And so stayed late. One of my students who's not quite my age stuck around. He's had a lot of injuries over the last couple of years, had hip surgery. And so he has a strenuous and stressful job. And he's, hey, can I help you clean the mats? And I'm like, never expected, but yeah, sure. We're late. So we're mopping. And he says, every day I work for 10 hard hours and I'm angry or like my day job and I'm frustrated with the people around me. And then I walk into this place, it all goes away.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, that is really what it's all about for me, especially for folks that are not like the 22-year-old college wrestler jump out of the gym folks. I really feel like in one of the things I've learned from really good instructors is that an academy is like an ecosystem and everybody plays a role. And we have lots of young 22-year-old college wrestlers jump out of the gym, bench press 400-pound guys, and God bless them. But those dudes would be fine wherever they trained. So if you build a place where people that are vulnerable do not feel vulnerable, then that's how vulnerable people get strong.
Yeah. That's a lovely phrase. Yeah. The needs of the 22-year-old athlete and the needs of the 42-year-old person's in the thick of, look, my responsibilities carry heavy consequences. I may not like what I'm doing, but I need a job and this is what I have at the moment. And one thing about jiu-jitsu that I think is common to everybody is that in the midst of a role, you're not thinking about other things. That role is pretty short if your mind's elsewhere. And that is a gift that is it's something I'm very aware of because I know my mind is classically the monkey brain that's like everywhere, but where it should be most of the time. But when my main training partner, Han, is kicking my butt, like I'm just thinking about trying to keep Han from killing me. And that is those are great moments in the day because I'm not distracted by anything other than that particular moment. And that's what I think gives those guys release, gives all of us that release from everyday else. And then having to put your trust in somebody that can take you to that limit without hurting you, I think is not present in most other aspects of our lives. Most of it feels zero sum in many other aspects of our lives. I need to go do this. And that means that whatever. Yeah. It's a competitive landscape in most other hours of the day that doesn't quite exist when someone's not going to break your arm, but they're going to bring your arm to say, I can break it. That's just different.
That's perfectly said. And like all of that is perfectly said. I want to add one piece to it, which is, like many aspects of life are competitive. And the thing is, I have a perspective on competition in terms of both jiu-jitsu and business that I think that I don't think is as common as it should be, which is I always tell people, I just want you to train. And if the place to train for you is not my place, that's fine.
Yeah.
I want you to find the place that's right for you because we're not a place where it's every role is to the death.
Right.
And we definitely have people that go hard and we have regular competitors and stuff like that. But it's like, you just want to scrap as hard as you can with every person that you're encountering. You can do that. You just can't do it here. But there should be a place for that. Because I came up training at a place like that where it was 10 really tough people that just wanted to go like two cats in a sack at each other all the time. Yeah. There's a place for that to exist. We had one kid who was super tough and Muay Thai fighter, got his blue belt with us. and he wants to get to UFC. And I was like, I will help you in every way I can, and I'll support you wherever you are. But if you want to be a professional MMA fighter, we don't do MMA. All of our striking is jujitsu, self-defense and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
And so he trains at City Kickboxing now, like give the world to chase his dream. And I think that's the best thing ever. Go find world-class people who have the same goals as you.
Right.
If your goals are competition, if your goals, like we are I want my academy to be a generalist academy that's good, solid fundamentals that can get you anywhere you want to go, whatever your goals are. My job as a coach is not to tell you your goals. My job as a coach is to help you get to your goals, even if you can't get to your goals here.
Yeah, to me, those are issues of honesty and clarity. If the community is like honest, if this is who we are, and then to be clear, because then there are some people who may not understand what those boundaries actually look like. Because I like a hard role for hard roles means different things with different people in my community. Like we have, and sometimes not everybody's on the same pace.
Yeah.
Like what it is, but what I have found, and even in those folks that maybe are outside of the community guidelines, so to speak, of what we are as that being clear with them, saying, hey, look, this is how we do things here, and giving them the choice. This is either, do you want to do this or do you want to go find another spot? Keeps it clean and is a good practice for how we should treat each other in general. Let's be honest. Let's be clear about what we're doing.
Most problems can be solved with clear, direct, and transparent communication. It's just really hard.
Yep. And I think that's one of the things that always I'm mindful of when I tap, is that this is a moment of honesty. Because if I insist that I can get out of this submission, but that's not really true, I'm going to get hurt. And early on, we had someone come through. I think Kyron Gracie came through once, and was past the instruction, and it was just Q&A time. We're sitting on the mats. He said, you can ask me whatever you want. And we have a broad range. I'm probably at the end of the age spectrum, but there's some people that, and of course the topic of injury comes up. And he said, you know what? If you're injured, it's most likely your fault. And at first I bristled. I'm like, wait a second. And then the more, I've gotten along, the more I realize he's right. And it's in me being dishonest with myself in any given position that puts me at risk, and which gives me a relationship to my ego that's very healthy, because I come to this with a set of joints that move only so far. And as much as I might like to think of myself as a strong guy, I am clearly not the strong guy that there's a lot of limits to my physical capabilities that if I try to pretend that those aren't there, then I know that I'm going to get hurt. So it keeps me humble in so many different ways, which is a good way to be, in my opinion. There are people listening, they may want to come and find you or follow you on social media and whatnot. So where might people go to learn about you?
Oh, thanks so much. So our website's bellinghambjj.com. On all the major social medias, we are at bellinghambjj on Instagram. We have a Facebook page, facebook.com/bellinghambjj. And people are always also welcome to email me at jeff@bellinghambjj.com. I love talking to people from the Jiu-Jitsu community. I have a whole list of free resources for people that maybe in rural areas, and like, my curriculum is online. I'm happy to give it out for free. Our intro program is online. I'm happy to give that out for free. If you're maybe a blue belt in the place like I grew up, 5,000 people, middle of nowhere, and you want some resources, definitely hit me up. I have a Google Doc I can send you, because we're all in this together at the end of the day. If we can build a society of people that have the traits you have just described about humility, honesty, dignity, respect, we'll be doing all right. And jiu-jitsu is a tool that can help us get there.
Oh, perfectly said. Professor Jeff, thanks for spending time with us. Maybe you'll come back another time. We'll have another conversation. Should that happen? I'd love that to be the case. So thank you.
Thanks a lot. I had a lot of fun. I'd love to come back.